Birth rates are declining, and in less than 100 years, countries like Spain and Japan could have half as many people as they have now.
I can't emphasize this enough. There are not enough people.
The biggest problem in 50 years will be that there's just not enough people.
The biggest problem the world will face in 20 years is population collapse.
This chart shows the average number of children women are having globally. As you can see, it's been steadily declining over the years. Africa still has the highest number of births at slightly over 4 per woman, followed by Asia, the US, and Europe, with the lowest at slightly under 1.5 births per woman. What's worrying is that, with the exception of Africa and a few countries in Asia, the majority of the world is experiencing a fertility crisis that is leading to a population decline. Back in 2000, women worldwide had an average of 2.7 kids each. This was more than needed to prevent the global population from shrinking. Today, that average is down to just 2.3 kids, and it's still dropping. This issue is even more pronounced in some of the world's top economies, such as the G7 nations like Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the United States. These countries are facing notably low birth rates, and yet their populations are getting older. What's more, for over 2 decades, the fertility rates in many of these countries have been below 1.5, as you can see in the graph. To put this in perspective, any worldwide average of fewer than 2 children per 2 adults means our population shrinks, and, in the long run, each new generation is smaller than the one before. As you can see, many countries have a fertility rate below 2.1, which is the number needed for the population to stay the same size. A rate below 1.5 means that the next generation will be considerably smaller than the previous one. But why is this happening? And is there a way to address this? Before diving into these questions, we must first grasp how serious this issue is. In the late 18th century, Thomas Malthus, a British economist, introduced a theory known as the Malthusian Trap. He theorized that the human population would grow at a pace that would eventually surpass and outstrip the production of essential resources, particularly food. Malthus expressed concern that this imbalance, if not controlled, could result in widespread famine and catastrophic events, but, on the flip side, would then reduce the population to sustainable levels. Despite these concerns, the global population has since increased dramatically. But now, experts predict a twist. The world's population might start to decrease by the end of this century for the first time since the Black Death pandemic in the 14th century. But, this time, the decline isn't because more people are dying, but because fewer babies are being born. Globally, declining birth rates are becoming a concern, especially in advanced economies where the decline is even more pronounced than the global average. A notable example is Japan, which has experienced a consistent decline in its birth rates for several decades. In fact, today, the country's fertility rate is below the level needed to sustain its current population size. And this crisis deepened in 2018 when Japan recorded its lowest number of births since 1899. That same year, Italy also reported an all-time low birth rate numbers. Likewise, in the US, birth rates have been dropping for years, with 2018 witnessing the fewest births in over 3 decades, as reported by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. While the global decline in fertility rates highlighted in the chart raises concerns about a potential population crisis, it's important to delve deeper into the factors driving this change. Economic development, access to education, and improved women's healthcare are just a few of the myriad influences contributing to this trend. Particularly in developed countries, the shift towards smaller family sizes reflects changing societal norms and priorities. However, this pattern isn't uniform across all regions. The varying rates between continents like Africa and Europe raise questions. What are the specific challenges and consequences faced by countries with rapidly declining birth rates? How do these trends compare with those in regions where fertility rates remain relatively high And how do we turn this trend around? Several studies have found that higher education in women is linked to lower fertility. For instance, back in the 1950s, women in Iran typically received about 3 years of education and often had up to 7 children. However, by 2010, things had changed significantly. Now, most women in Iran were averaging nearly 9 years of education. And guess what? With more education, the number of children they had dropped to an average of 1.8. Conversely, in countries where women have limited access to education tend to have higher birth rates. Take Niger, for instance. Back in 2010, the average woman in Niger received just slightly more than a year of formal education. Yet, these women had large families, averaging more than 7 children each, a figure well above the global average at the time. Women's increased participation in the workforce, especially in wealthy countries, has significantly contributed to declining birth rates. As women become more educated and career-oriented, they often choose to postpone starting a family to prioritize their careers and professional development. This delay often results in fewer childbearing years, leading to smaller family sizes. For example, in Japan, as more women have entered the workforce and pursued higher education over the past few decades, the country has seen a noticeable decline in fertility rates. Many Japanese women, prioritizing their careers, are postponing or even foregoing marriage and childbirth, leading to lower birth rates. Job market dynamics also influence career-family compatibility. For instance, in countries like Spain, where jobs are either temporary or permanent, many women tend to postpone having children in hopes of securing a stable job first. And this type of labor market can naturally lead to lower fertility rates. Broadly speaking, in areas and countries where unemployment is high, short-term jobs are common, and permanent jobs are hard to obtain, even taking temporary leave to start a family can seriously jeopardize a woman's career progression. And this is one of the many reasons why women today are hesitant to make that sacrifice. You see, many couples in rich countries prioritize financial stability because of the rising expenses of raising children. Factors such as education, healthcare, housing, and extracurricular activities, like sports clubs, drama and music classes, and so on, have become more expensive as the quality of life improves. And to manage these activities getting increasingly expensive and maintain their standard of living, many couples opt to have fewer children, ensuring, at the very least, they can adequately provide for the ones they have. For instance, in the United States, the rising costs of college education, childcare, and healthcare have led many couples to rethink the number of children they can afford. And, recognizing the substantial financial commitment required to raise each child, they often opt for smaller families. Similarly, in Japan, the challenges of urban life, such as high living costs, limited living space, and lack of childcare facilities in cities, make it difficult for couples to start or expand their families. And this environment really discourages many couples from having children. But can these couples get help from their other family members? Many couples in cities often live far from their extended families who, if nearby, could provide support. In fact, a recent study ranked Japan as one of the world's most expensive places to raise a child. Moreover, the Japanese economy has been sluggish since the early 1990s, resulting in stagnant wages and limited career growth opportunities. As a result, many couples are re-evaluating how many children they can realistically afford to raise. What's more, increased access to contraceptives and enhanced sexual health education have made it easier for people to manage their family size better. Wealthier nations tend to provide not only better access to birth control, but also strong educational campaigns on family planning and sexual well-being. Being informed about how contraceptives work give people the tools to decide when or if they want children. Given this power, many couples and women delay childbirth to focus on other priorities like advancing their careers, pursuing personal growth, attaining financial stability, buying a house, or securing a good job. Moreover, certain policies can make it harder for people to start families early, especially if these policies don't help new parents. A key example is parental leave. In countries where parents get little or no paid leave, they must choose between unpaid time off, which can be financially tough, or going back to work soon after the baby is born. Returning to work quickly can be hard on new parents, both physically and emotionally, as they miss important bonding time with their baby. For example, in the US, a wealthy country, there isn't strong national support for paid parental leave. This leaves many workers relying on their employer's generosity for paid leave, or they have to use vacation time or take unpaid leave to be with their newborn.
Right now, the only federal plan is 12 weeks of unpaid leave and only for qualified workers. President Biden has vowed to pass a federal family leave bill, but lawmakers aren't budging.
This financial pressure, especially for those without a lot of savings, leads many to delay having children until they're in a better financial or job situation. Additionally, this lack of support can increase stress and health issues among new parents, affecting their overall well-being and work performance. Then again, even in countries with family-friendly policies, some couples are still choosing not to have children. This is largely due to the increasing acceptance of non-traditional family structures. In the past, societal norms dictated that marriage was followed by childbirth. However, as societies have progressed, there's increased acceptance and understanding of diverse family structures. This means that not having children has become a more socially acceptable choice, and people feel less pressure to conform to traditional family norms. For instance, while Sweden offers substantial parental leave benefits and provides considerable support for parents, an increasing number of couples are opting not to have children. One reason is the country's emphasis on individualism and personal fulfillment, which means many Swedes prioritize personal and career goals, leading them to delay or forego having children altogether. Additionally, the broader societal acceptance of diverse family models, such as child-free couples and same-sex partners, allows individuals to make life choices that align with their personal desires without the fear of societal backlash. In many affluent countries, a combination of factors such as stress, lifestyle habits, environmental influences, and specific medical conditions have contributed to heightened fertility issues for numerous individuals. The relentless pressure of high-powered careers and societal expectations in these nations can lead to hormonal imbalances, which, in turn, may result in irregular menstrual cycles and reduced sperm quality, hindering fertility. Plus, modern lifestyles in these countries often lean towards sedentary behaviors and increased consumption of processed foods, coupled with harmful habits like smoking and excessive drinking. Considering these habits contribute to prevalent health concerns like obesity, it can lead to complications such as polycystic ovary syndrome in women, ultimately affecting ovulation and their chances of becoming pregnant. But that's not all. Environmental challenges further worsen the problem. Residents in these affluent parts of the world often encounter harmful chemicals, pollutants, and radiation daily, either through everyday products or environmental exposure. These detrimental elements can significantly impair reproductive health. Medical conditions such as endometriosis, PCOS, or certain autoimmune diseases further hinder an individual's fertility. Additionally, as many individuals in these countries opt to postpone having children, age-related fertility issues are becoming increasingly common. Even worse, in many of these affluent countries, the healthcare system prioritizes areas like oncology, elderly care, and acute medicine over fertility treatments. As a result, there's often a need for more resources and funding for fertility treatments. While private fertility clinics offer solutions, their high costs make them inaccessible to many, especially those with limited financial resources. While global population growth rates are generally declining, specific regions are still anticipated to experience notable increases in the coming decades. For instance, Sub-Saharan Africa, including countries like the Democratic Republic of Congo, Nigeria, and Tanzania, is projected to see a significant rise in its population. Population specialists even estimate that by 2100, Africa will account for half of the world's newborns. Among the G7 nations, Canada, the United Kingdom, and the United States are expected to maintain steady population growth until 2050. Conversely, countries like Japan, Germany, and Italy are predicted to see a decline in their populations, mainly due to aging citizens and decreasing fertility rates. Meanwhile, France's population is expected to begin a downward trend starting in 2040. So, why is this a problem? And why are various governments concerned? At first glance, one might assume that a declining population benefits the environment. Fewer people could mean less strain on resources, reduced carbon emissions, and less deforestation for agriculture. However, the situation is more complex than it appears. Despite the environmental advantages, a decreasing population is very problematic. Why? For starters, the economic health of a country is deeply intertwined with its population size. More people generally mean a larger workforce and greater consumer demand, bolstering economic growth. For instance, a significant portion of the US's economic strength stems from its vast population. But if that population shrinks, there will be fewer workers and consumers, potentially slowing economic growth. While population size does play a role in shaping a country's economy, it's not the sole determinant. For instance, even though India's population is more than 4 times that of the United States, the US economy is 7 times larger. With declining birth rates and increased life expectancies, many industrialized nations in North America, Western Europe, and Japan are seeing their population getting older and older, and this demographic change brings with it economic and social consequences. As these populations age at an unprecedented rate, policymakers face multiple challenges such as a shrinking workforce, which can hinder economic growth. Coupled with that, healthcare costs are set to rise, given that an older population typically requires more medical attention. Pension systems too feel the pressure, as a declining young workforce might not contribute enough to sustain the retirees' benefits. Additionally, the aging population influences the demand for certain goods and services, reshaping the economy. All these issues, and more, pose a risk to the high standard of living that these advanced nations currently enjoy. On a more personal level, younger people often bear the responsibility of caring for their older, retired family members. With people living longer post-retirement, this can lead to significant emotional and financial strains on the younger generation. Additionally, an aging population can have consequences for national security. A decline in the youth population might make it difficult for countries to sustain a strong military force, potentially impacting their geopolitical position. Fortunately, most wealthy nations recognize the challenges of an aging population. As a result, they are enacting policies to counteract the declining birth rates and address the declining population trends. For example, Italy has experimented with initiatives to encourage higher birth rates. Under the leadership of Mario Draghi in May 2021, the government initiated monthly allowances of up to €175, $190 per child, a policy which has been sustained under Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's administration. In comparison, countries like Germany and France offer more extensive support to potential parents. However, such benefits don't necessarily result in significantly higher birth rates. In Germany, where new parents can opt for up to 3 years of partially paid or unpaid maternity leave, the birth rate for the first half of 2022 was slightly higher than Italy's, averaging 1.4 children per woman. The situation in Italy is unique because the Catholic Church, a prominent political influence, and the right-wing government under Meloni have resisted certain measures that could address the declining birth rates. Maloney's government strongly supports traditional family values, holds reservations about assisted reproductive methods such as surrogacy for all couples, and has declined proposals to grant citizenship by birth to children of immigrants, even to those born of permanent, tax-paying residents. Unlike Italy, China has relaxed its stance on childbirth policies. Initially, China implemented a one-child policy from 1980 to 2016 to control its population. However, as the country developed and faced potential economic issues due to an aging population, they made changes. In 2016, families were allowed to have 2 children, and by 2021, this number had increased to 3. The Japanese government has also taken a hands-on approach to address declining birth rates by enacting several programs that provide incentives and support for new parents. Such policies include a year-long parental leave, family financial support, and subsidized childcare. They even supported an artificial intelligence matchmaking service to help people find partners and, hopefully, increase the birth rate. However, while many countries are providing financial support for parents, experts believe there are deeper societal issues to address. These include traditional gender roles, which might pressure women to choose between a career and raising children. Additionally, in some countries, minorities and poorer individuals face more noteworthy challenges when it comes to having and raising children. Regarding the issue of an aging population, countries like France and the Netherlands have considered raising the retirement age, which would delay the time people are eligible to get their pension benefits. However, this was met with public resistance and debates about the impact of these changes on the workforce. Meanwhile, nations like Australia and Canada have embraced more inclusive immigration policies to address labor shortages due to falling birth rates. In the future, many countries will need to think about adopting policies that affect birth rates, mortality, and migration. While there's no consensus on the exact timing, most experts believe the global population will reach its highest point later this century, before declining. But again, each country's journey is unique, with some already facing economic, social, and political challenges due to population changes. The impact of population shifts can be profound, so it's crucial for leaders to closely monitor and respond to these changes accordingly. Now, life in America is becoming more costly every day, and because of this and other factors, many Americans are starting to view Mexico as a potential solution to their problems. To learn more, watch this video explaining why Americans are considering Mexico as a place for a better life.